So you're playing a woo-woo, you're doing some temples, and you get 5-star Yinlin. Now, what do you get with Yinlin besides, well, Yinlin? Well, she is a rectifier wielding electro user. That's a little bit harder to say than I say in the Genshin videos. Who is, well, this. So in this video, we're gonna look at the basics of Yinlin, what she does, how her kit works, and how to use her. So just like we do in every single one of these videos, we are going to look at the current build of the current character that we are using for this video. Now, I am below UL 40, so I cannot go higher than level 60 on characters' weapons. Yinlin is level 60 out of 60 with 12,000 HP, 1100 attack, energy regen 119.2, crit rate 65.5, over 231 crit damage. I have spent a lot of time on my Yinlin at level 60. For weapon, she is running a level 60 String Master, which is her signature. For echoes, she is running a 5-piece Void Thunder. Yes, this is an on-field damage Yinlin, with Tempest Mephis being her main. For her fortes, 4, 4, 4, 4, 4. I've taken them as high as I can for the time being. She is C0. So now we're gonna go look at how her normal attack, her charged attack, or her heavy attack, and her forte, how all of this stuff works. Real quick before we do that though, we're gonna look at her passives, which are gonna be in the center right here. Her first passive, after using her skill, her crit rate is increased by 15% for 5 seconds. So you wanna make sure that you're using her skill before you launch into your attacks. So her normal attacks, she is going to be swinging around Zapstring, which is the name of her puppet, doing electro damage. Her heavy attack without her forte gauge, that's the gauge above her HP bar, the heavy attack that she does with that is that she just kind of swings Zapstring around, hitting enemies in a very small AoE. With her normal attacks, she does have some range because she is controlling Zapstring, so you don't have to be right up against the enemies. Now we are going to look at her skill, and her skill is going to have kind of 2 different uses, right? The first one, she is going to swing Zapstring, she is going to do an instance of electro damage. Now, anytime that we do normal attacks, you see we're going to put this kind of a mark on the enemy. This is the center's mark. Whenever we then do damage to them again, it is going to do lightning strikes, kind of dealing an extra instance of electric damage. Using this skill also does give that crit rate increase from her passive, so do be sure that you are using her skill often. Now, if we use her skill again, it is going to do another instance, a stronger instance of electro damage, hitting enemies that are affected by the center's mark for more damage. As you can see here, once we use her skill, we do get that crit rate. It is crit rate overall, it's not specific to a certain attack. Now, the way that we trigger that extra electro instance of damage from her skill onto the enemies with center's mark is basic attacks or dodge counters. Each enemy affected by center's mark can only be hit 4 times until the center's mark goes away and you have to reapply the center's mark. Now, it is a little bit weird to kind of see the extra instances of electro damage with like the lightning strikes, because this tact field does have lightning strikes trying to hit Yinlin. So we do go to a different area where you see the extra electro damage taking place. Now here in this other area, which is where we'll kind of continue on doing stuff, you will see those extra damages, those extra electro damage, that is going to be caused from the lightning strikes are going to be caused from the center's mark on enemy. It's not going to be caused from the terrain that we're in or the area that we're in. Now, when you have a charged forte gauge, which again is the gauge above her HP, which you can charge through basic attacks using her skill and using her burst, it charges faster once you have used her skill and you're hitting enemies with the center's mark. You can do a different kind of heavy attack where she is going to sit down in Zapstring's hands while you have this insanely big electro AoE, and it does a ton of damage. It does so much damage. Again, make sure that you're using your skill first so that way you can get the increase in crit rate, but it is doing a ton of damage whenever you do her charged forte, or whenever you have her forte fully charged and you do a heavy attack. And I'm gonna show her doing this heavy attack on multiple instances because you can see how wide of an AoE it hits. Basically anything on the screen that's not like super far in the distance is gonna be hit by this AoE. It does a lot of damage and it hits a lot of enemies. So now for her burst. Her burst is going to do an AoE instance of electro damage, where it's kind of gonna hit, it's gonna mainly target one enemy, and then anything within a certain AoE of that enemy is also going to be hit by the electricity in this burst. So the majority of her kit deals a lot of AoE. It's very, very good for multiple enemies at once. So each individual hit may not do as much as a character like Encore, but the amount of damage that you're getting through AoE is absolutely insane, and how big the AoE is crazy. So now for her outro skill. Her outro skill makes her pair really, really well with other electro characters, because whenever you use her outro skill, the incoming character has an increase in electro damage and their burst damage, and it's a fair good amount. So using her with other characters like Culturo is really, really good, because he uses his burst a lot. You want to use his burst as much as you can, and he does a ton of electro damage. So allowing him to get this outro skill is really, really good, because it just makes him so much stronger. And in this instance, Yinlin partnering her with Culturo, this would be where WuWu uses the phrase sub DPS. It's not the same as Genshin, where Genshin you have an off-field DPS, and that's what they call sub DPS. This is much more of your sub DPS is going to be the character that you want to use their outro skill leading into your main DPS. So Yinlin is really, really good sub DPS for Culturo because of how they work together. Yinlin can do her own damage at a very, very good rate. You would probably run a different echo set on her, but then using her to then give Culturo the insane buff of plus 20% electro damage and plus 25% burst damage is crazy. Those characters are not necessarily looked at as supports, they are looked at as your sub DPS or your secondary DPS, much more in WuWu than like Genshin. So for the echo set, like I said, a main one of Tempest Mephis, which is going to be your best one, because whenever you use it, it's going to increase your current character's electro damage and heavy attack damage, which if you're going to be using Yinlin on field, this is the main echo that you want. I am running a crit rate with some crit damage. I need to get that up. Now notice I do have 2 4-stars over here. I haven't quite gotten good enough rolls on 5 stars to replace that. Like that's got some pretty good crit rate and crit damage. That's a lot of crit damage there. So, and I'm running double electro damage just to kind of see if you wanted to do a sub DPS Yinlin, then one of these electro damages, you would just be running energy regen instead. For weapons, if you do not have String Master, you do of course have something like Jinzo Keeper, which can be good. It's going to get up attack. It's going to let her do more damage whenever she comes on the field with her intro skill, giving her even more attack. It's going to be harder to get a good split, but it's going to give her the attack. You do have Variation, which gets up energy regen. If you're running her for a sub DPS for the support of Culturo, this is going to be better because you want to have the energy regen. Then, of course, you do have Rectifier Voyager, which is like a lesser version of that one, where you just get some energy regen. You do get some energy, some resonance energy. You do get some of that as well. So this can be good for her if you don't have the 4-star. But String Master is still just going to be her best, which is, of course, is her signature. And it really looks cool. I love the hand thing in the middle. So that is going to be it for this video on the basics of Yinlin. If you have any questions, do be sure to leave it down in the comments. Myself or someone else will be sure to answer, and I'll see you in the next one.